from an undisclosed location in the Great Western Desert in the land of the free and autonomous Native American people. The 2024 presidential campaign in its time to return all US land back to their rights owners. This is the Ben Zion Podcast.
Techno-communism. Looking at the scary thing here. The blank page. You might have noticed there's probably a headline for this to do with creative endeavor. I'm looking at the first draft and some other materials for a screenplay that I wrote approximately 1 year ago. Still working on it in the last spring. I worked on it a few months before that, called Falcon X Omega Point, an action film, a transhumanist, anti-imperialist action film. I don't know how much an action film made in the West can really be anti-imperialist. A lot of these movies have some kind of anti-imperialist subplot, but really they're sent through the CIA office that decides which of these films gets made to some degree, and they edit them a little bit to make them more empire friendly. They edit them to. These people are often more concerned with the overall impressions that people have over repeated viewings and exposures to media than any one movie's plot. So the Marvel universe is an example of a mega billion-dollar media empire that's been run through this CIA media office. It's kind of a creation of it, and any one of those movies, like the recent one I discussed on a previous show, I meant to do a whole review of that, but I wasn't sure if I really wanted to. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. It has some things that are critical of empire, seemingly, and some things that would seem to relate to consciousness and liberation. But on closer scrutiny, it really is not a communist work in any real sense. And you can say this of many of these things, that they are that you are have a deluge of it's an endless a relentless downpour of media that is empire and fascist friendly in various ways and to various degrees, but very little of it is any media, not just entertainment, is something that's consistent with the Marxist-Leninist worldview, and certainly not in furtherance of the Marxist tech accelerationist worldview that I try to articulate on this program. This episode might be a little bit of a departure for that, because we're going a little surprised when I stumbled on this. How to use ChatGPT to write a screenplay, because I searched for a similar search term after how to use ChatGPT to revise a screenplay, and didn't find anything. So there's not too many articles other than this one on this subject. So if you're using ChatGPT because of this show, or because it's been in widespread use now, good for you, I suppose, with the understanding that I hope that you will use it somewhat selectively, that you will use it in the hope of finding a better product that's not controlled by for-profit corporations and is not more or less a product of the fascist West itself. I hope that you will, some of those companies unfortunately have folded in this arms race, but I hope that, and furthermore, I hope that you will offset the damage done by supporting a fascist company like OpenAI, fascist sympathetic perhaps, by using this product to plan a world revolution, the techno-revolution that's often discussed in this program. So please use this product and this kind of thing to solidify your own position, with further endeavor to then undertake to dismantle the evil empire that's killing this planet. This is from griproom.com, and it was written obviously not too long ago, January 31st, by Derek Slater. Writing a screenplay can be a challenging task, but with ChatGPT, the process got a lot easier. ChatGPT is a state-of-the-art chatbot that can generate human-like text. You probably know this, you've been watching the show. In this guide, we will highlight how you can use ChatGPT to tackle the difficulties of writing a screenplay. From generating ideas, outlines, and even full scripts, ChatGPT will be your helpful companion in bringing your movie or TV show, TV vision to life. You can't just say, ChatGPT, give me a whole script. That'd be like, I'm only able to give you one chapter at a time. That kind of thing, not chapter. But, their responses are limited to a few hundred words at a time. That stands to reason, right? If you know anything about this technology, you know that even if they could plop out a whole script on the subject, maybe that's something maybe you probably pay for, as opposed to use for free on internet. But also the technology hasn't advanced that far yet, for ordinary use anyway. But you can use it for that purpose if you are pretty sneaky and pretty diligent in reposing and framing your questions. You have to think about your work a lot to be able to do something like this. You have to have a pretty clear idea of what you want, but it will do an awful lot for you if you're willing to put in the time. In this guide, we will highlight how you can use ChatGPT to tackle the difficulties of writing a screenplay, from generating ideas, outlines, to even full scripts. ChatGPT will be a helpful companion. Say goodbye to writer's block, and hello to seamless screenwriting experience with ChatGPT. Use how to use ChatGPT to help you write a screenplay. Define your story. Start by outlining the story you want to tell. Who are the main characters? What is the setting? What is the conflict or challenge? So I gave you some short character sketches just a moment ago of the major characters in my story. And if you've never sat down and written anything like this, that can all be a daunting task. You want to do an awful lot of pre-writing, figure out who the characters are, dream on it a little bit, then maybe you can start to do the actual writing, and then you should assume that when you write a first draft of something that you're going to have to rewrite it. And I was talking to one of these people today. I worked with a couple of people on this project. I didn't just work on it by myself. And some of the people that I worked with, I've lost touch with, and that's putting it mildly. One of these people kind of insinuated their way into my life. And I said, I'm a communist up front. I'm a communist. I'm working on a communist project. If you don't like communists, you need to stay the fuck out of my face. And they're like, yeah, I love communists. And then I come to realize that was a lie. But everybody's in denial about this sort of thing. So I'm not talking with this person anymore. And if I see him and he asks me about this project, I probably will tell him to go eat shit. If you're some kind of fascist or fascist sympathizer, which is almost anyone who's not a communist or something very, very much like it, stay the fuck away from me, man. I don't want to know you. If I already know you, still maybe understand that's what we're talking about. And if you get in my business, it probably isn't going to be a great use of our time. But none of the people that I worked with this, unfortunately, part of the reason why I'm putting this out here is maybe I can find some communists to take an active interest in helping me work on this project, because the people that I was able to bring into the project through my ordinary network were not the sort of people that I want to be working with. Not people with a real dedication to a humane and sustainable economic system. So it doesn't matter that they might have some contacts and interests in the area otherwise, if we could never really have any real value alignment as to what we're trying to do in the world. And one of these people I'm still in friendly terms with, but it's not somebody who I really trust very much. They overwhelmingly work with capitalists on kind of troubleshooting capitalist problems, and I'm not too impressed by that life's work, if I'm being honest. I won't say this person's name. Ask ChatGPT for help. Type in a prompt to ChatGPT that reflects your story idea. For example, write a screenplay about a detective solving a murder case in a small town. Okay, let's do that. Let's see what we got. I have a couple of ChatGPT type apps on my phone now, but I still just go to the website because I'm already fairly used to working there. But if it doesn't work, then we'll try the other. New tab. Write a long-form film treatment for a movie about a military contractor who is badly hurt by his employees, becomes a superhero, and takes down the military-industrial complex. Iron Contractor. So I gave it an Iron Man type spin-off title. That sounds like a movie from the Asylum. The Asylum was a company that makes these movies that are mockbusters. They look like a big Marvel movie, but then it'll just have less well-known actors and maybe a little more obvious computer-generated special effects. Sometimes they're pretty good, and usually not terribly well written. So Iron Contractor definitely sounds like it could be a pretty good mockbuster there. All right, so we got a pretty long treatment already. Iron Contractor, logline. When a military contractor is betrayed and left for dead by his own employees, he gains incredible abilities and vows to take down the corrupt military industrial complex that he once served. Yeah, that's actually a pretty reasonable synopsis of Falcon X Omega Point. It's probably a good idea maybe to leave out some of the AI narrative that's pretty central to the story in trying to pitch something like this. Just keep it to the dramatic elements. Act 1. The film opens with a series of high-octane action sequences set in war-torn countries. We see a group of military contractors led by the charismatic and ruthless Jonathan Jackson carrying out dangerous missions for the U.S. government. But behind the scenes, Jax and his team are this is fucking delightful because I worked quite a lot on this project before I really had much of an idea of using the GTP products were available at that time, but before I really had much of an idea of using something like this for any kind of pre-writing. And so this is kind of tripping me out a little bit. I should be smoking pot right now. Carrying out dangerous missions for the U.S. government, but behind the scenes, Jax and his team are involved in illegal arms deals and other shady activities. The major difference in my story is a little bit more to do with the quality of the emerging technology, but maybe the drama is not wholly dissimilar. Our protagonist, Ryan Cole, is a former soldier who now works for Jax's company as a consultant. He's a good man at heart, but he's become disillusioned with the military complexes and the endless war that it fuels. He's also worried about Jax's increasingly erratic behavior. It's pretty close. It's pretty close, just substituting names. It's fairly good. I guess what does that say except that my writing is itself a little predictable. But I was trying to make transhumanist and Marxist tech acceleration a superhero movie. Wasn't trying to write the great American work. Ryan barely survives the attack, but he's badly injured and left for dead. However, he wakes up in a hospital room with incredible powers. He has super strength, agility, and the ability to manipulate technology with his mind. In my story, he's not magically endowed with superpowers as such. He is cyberguised and integrated as he's badly hurt in various ways. His mind, through brain-computer interface, is merged with the existing artificial superintelligence that exists under glass that was created largely by Sarah, who, unbeknownst to her former employers, Sarah's this manic pixie AI genius, who, unbeknownst to her former employers, has kept a lot of the technology that she developed, even though it's their property, and has been kind of in a secret arms race with them. And when they go rogue and start killing her friends, she is there to pick up the pieces and turn David, who's just kind of a schlub, into Falcon X, an avenging angel. Act 2. Ryan barely survives the attack, but he's badly injured and left for dead. However, he wakes up with incredible powers. He realizes he's been transformed into a living weapon, and he's determined to use his new abilities to take down the corrupt military-industrial complex that he once served. And one of the people that I was working on this, I won't say his name either, not because I have anything to say about him or our relationship, as I've said about these other people, but just because I might want to ask him first. He's a working professional, and I'm not going to mention his name without his permission. But I pitched this as sort of Iron Man with all people of color in the lead roles. So he was like, "Yeah, Black Iron Man. That sounds awesome. I'll play that role. I'll work on that with you." And then, I shouldn't. This is kind of happens over and over again. I start working with someone thinking that they're a good person, thinking that I can work around the things in which we disagree, and then realize that they're a giant piece of shit, and then it derails the other things that I'm working on. Now, I wouldn't say that Falcon X Omega Point has been derailed. I don't know what the guy who would have been playing David would have thought about that, but if you ask him, because I haven't spoken to him about it in a while, so he's probably like, hey, what's going on with that? But we were trying to bring in some people with a little bit more production experience, and try and actually sell this thing, maybe actually run it up the flagpole a little bit. But I don't encourage you to undertake creative projects, honestly. I think that the show, just guy talking to a webcam about using ChatGPT for your own use in some specific way, maybe to get you interested, and then encouraging you to also use it to revolutionary ends. That show, not a creative masterpiece, is at least as good in terms of its contribution to the betterment of humankind as any creative work made in the West is going to be, in my humble opinion. So I don't. That's part of the reason why I haven't been working on this, and why I wasn't planning to even work on it this year, except that I thought I would do some shows about it as it relates to ChatGPT. So I'm ambivalent about being a creative or being a writer, I guess, at this point. As Ryan becomes more powerful, he also becomes more isolated from the people he's trying to protect. He struggles with the weight of his responsibilities and the knowledge that his actions could have unintended consequences. In a climactic battle, Robin and Mel infiltrate Jax's headquarters and engage in a brutal fight against Jax and his team. I don't think they even described Mel. Who's Mel? Yeah, they just kind of skipped that there's another character. But Robin, Ryan, and Mel could just as easily be David and Sarah, who are the. I had already kind of thought that if there was another of these movies, it would be a lot more about Sarah. And I already written a couple of possible outlines for a sequel to this when I was working on this every day. In the end, Ryan emerges victorious. He exposes Jax's crime to the world, and the military-industrial complex is brought to its knees. Ryan disappears into the shadow, leaving behind a legacy of heroism and sacrifice. Epilogue. In the final scene, we see Mel. Let's say Mel or May. We see May sitting at her computer, watching news reports about Ryan's exploits. She smiles wistfully, knowing that Ryan will never be able to return to his old life, but she's also grateful for the opportunity to have worked with him and for the chance to make a difference in the world. Iron Contractor, which is a really stupid name, is a thrilling and thought-provoking action movie that explores the dark side of the military-industrial complex and the power of one person to make a difference. It's a story about redemption, sacrifice, and the cost of doing what's right in a world that's often driven by greed and corruption. My story is this could almost work as a treatment for it. Change some names, change 50 other words besides, and I could pass this off as a Falcon X film treatment. And if you go into a meeting or you mail this to somebody and say, I have a screenplay, here's a treatment, they don't know that you don't have a screenplay yet, and they don't know that it was written by AI. They have no way of knowing any of that. So you can be working on things of this kind in this way. I may not be the best example of that, as most of the projects that I've worked on to put any real time into would be described mostly kind of as student films. But I have worked on some bigger scale projects, things that have gone on, that I worked on at early stages that have gone on to win awards and things like this, and have done other kinds of work along these lines. But this is not my livelihood, nor was it ever exactly really my livelihood. You could say kind of at a certain point, but depends. It depends on your definitions, right? Is being a podcaster my livelihood at this time? I spend a certain amount of time doing it, but it's basically a sacrifice to the techno revolution because it's not profiting by it in directly in those ways. this is a pretty good treatment, but it whipped out in 10 seconds. That you could use things like this, and think about whatever it is that you want to be doing. If it involves a little language at all, which most things do, ChatGPT could help you along those lines. Again, whatever you need to do, whatever you want to do. I have said, I hope it's not a screenplay, not because I'm jealous of people, but because I don't consider the pursuit of art, even art that is describing the Marxist tech accelerationist outcome, to be the highest of endeavors. It pushes up to being agitation propaganda. It pushes up to being a worthy project, but I have no way of knowing. A screenplay and a treatment is not a film. In the making of the film, if it were made at all, it might turn out to be something different. And the main reason that you shouldn't work on a screenplay is because you'll have almost certainly just wasted your time. Not to be a dick about it, but you'll spend a lot of time working on this, and it will never get made. That's what 999 out of 1,000 of these projects essentially come to. So you could spend a year of your life trying to help people, or spearheading some sort of revolutionary action or cause. That would be a much better thing to do. I was in a thread on Twitter the other day, and some people were talking about. They just had some right-wing people making transphobic comments. United States, fascist country. There's a lot of people who are doing nothing with their lives ideologically, except ginning up right-wing hatred and foolishness. Doesn't even make sense for the most part. It serves no function. It's quite intentionally serves no function, right? The function, the functional thing, would be actions in service of a humane and sustainable economic system. Capitalists win by making sure that you don't think about a humane and sustainable economic system almost ever. And so they have a whole long list of wedge issues and distractions of things, maybe things not wholly dissimilar to Falcon X and Megapoint. But in this case, it's the transphobic furor that's spreading across the country. And I was thinking about how so many people are just baited into this, that they're interacting with people. They might not even be real people a lot of the time, right? You're just kind of wasting your time yelling into the void. And they aren't a lot of real people a lot of times. There's a billion sock puppets and chatbots on the internet, even in 2020, before started talking about ChatGPT quite so much. So you have to assume that number is growing. There's a larger and larger kind of unreality that's going to envelop you. So it's not a great idea to just spend all of your time on Twitter, because you're wasting time yelling into the void and being drawn into a certain kind of unreality. But this is what I was thinking about the other day. On the other hand, you don't have a lot of options, right? I started working with a couple of organizations over the years, and I found that without fail, they were infiltrated by bad actors who, like in the movie Judas and the Black Messiah, they seem to be helping and doing good things, but you realize that they're just sleeper agents, waiting for the moment when something more eventful starts to happen, so they can blow the whole thing up, or just generally being a counter-revolutionary in other targeted ways in service to the three-letter agency or piece of shit think tank that they work for. I was thinking about how do you get to the point of doing what comrades Lenin and Stalin and company did in the 1910s, and spearheading a revolution in one country? How do you get to the point of doing what comrades Castro and company did in the 1960s, late 50s, 60s, spearheading a revolution in one country? Well, you can't have these counter-revolutionaries in your midst in too great number. because they will stop you from doing that. They'll blow up your operation. The second you start to make inroads towards achieving your goal of building a humane and sustainable economic system, that endeavor will be completely undermined or destroyed. This is Judas and the Black Messiah is a really good example of this, because the Black Panthers, really the only significant communist movement in U.S. history, the Communist Party and others didn't do great work by comparison. I won't get into a lengthy conversation about how the Communist Party sucks. They do really suck, but they're barely deserving of that name. But the Black Panthers were the rare departure from that, being captured by liberal capitalist fascist influence, and they were also, of course, a liberation movement. So they had a certain kind of potential impetus and influence and a just position to challenge the fascist West that others do not. And so then the story of Judas and the Black Messiah, which is a true story, is just but one of many, many, many instances of the Black Panthers being infiltrated and betrayed and murdered and so forth. And you won't find an organization that doesn't have people basically doing this. They're not always getting away with murder, although they do. They are now using more sophisticated kinds of tricks, AI and things, to achieve these same disruptive ends. So it's I say in the show many times and today that you should pursue revolutionary action, but you should know what you're getting yourself into. This essential thing is why I am a pamphleteer and agitation propagandist and guy with a small chat show, as opposed to someone who's working with others on revolutionary projects. Because it's impossible to work on revolutionary projects without getting rat fucked 800 fucking times. So it's in my advice is, if you have any resources at your disposal in connection to other countries, is to take the lessons of the Marxist accelerationist worldview that I tried to describe on this show, that you should use emerging technology, the most powerful tools ever to exist, the most powerful tools for a techno-revolution, to undertake that techno-revolution, which is the building of a humane and sustainable economic system that can only be done by communists. Capitalists who say they're going to do this, they end up doing what someone like Zoltan Istvin does. He says that he supports and wants to have a basic income. That was his big talking point for a couple of years, one of his bigger talking points, I guess. And then when things get bad in the U.S., when it becomes time for he does exactly what Andrew Yang did this at almost exactly the same time, because he also works for right-wing scumbags of the same kind. So he forfeited his talk about a basic income, completely just abandoned it. No one even remembers it now, almost. And what did Zoltan Istvin do at that time instead? He's doing exactly what the CIA wants him to do, which is saying, we have to protect the economy, guys. We can't shut down anything, even for a couple of days, to save 2 million lives, because the economy has to be protected, which doesn't even pass the laugh test. But that doesn't matter, as long as enough of these CIA assets are looking at their little smartwatch. Oh, message from the CIA. I gotta pivot to do this fascist message. And you'll see time and time again examples of techno-futurists and other people like this, only ever talking about some utopian outcome when it's off in the far, far future. If it starts to become a real prospect, then suddenly they lose interest. It's not a coincidence, because these people are all crypto-fascists. Virtually none of them want any of the good things they say that they want. The best example of this is that a lot of these people that I talk about, and a lot of these people who are futurists, want radical life extension, but they will not even support the ordinary life extension that exists today, built through a public health service of people living over 80 years. They don't support that in the slightest. Virtually none of them. All of these people are privatization maniacs. They want to strip away the things that would save your life. and give it to people like J.J. Cobb in my story. Those are the people that they work for. Those are the interests that they serve. These are very, very, very bad. Darren Bradley. This is from 2021. This is not to do with ChatGPT, but it's on revising. Finishing your screenplay is only the first step. The real work is the revisions. Here's how to get started. We've all seen this advice before. Virtually every website, blog, or script service out there tells you that once you finish your script, you have to go through the revision process over and over. Some screenwriting web experts tell you to expect apocalyptically many revisions, like Sisyphus pushing a stone up a hill. Yeah, don't. That's why you should, at the earliest stages, even if you just have a bunch of crap that you got ChatGPT, to workshop a thing rather than just sit on your computer and waste your own time. Maybe it's better to waste your own time than waste other people's time, but if you really believe in the project and you really think it has importance, which in my definition would be only something that has a revolutionary message or significance, then you should immediately get other people involved. So find somebody who say, hey, you're an actor? Hey, come sit with me. Let's read some sides together, and then draw them into the workshopping process. Or find people who are favorably inclined to work on the project because of what you want to do. If it's a revolutionary project, maybe you can find another revolutionary who will sit and talk with you about your project. But don't count on that. People come to the conclusion, unfortunately, the only people that tend to come to the conclusion that that we need to build a humane and sustainable economic system are people who have been squeezed against the sides, people who aren't in the best of position. So those are people who are of a temperament to undertake revolutionary action against fascist power that has overwhelmingly brainwashed everyone else. And those kind of people, maybe rightly so, don't necessarily want to talk to you about your vanity project. They may not have the time for that. They may not have the inclination to do that. But you couldn't easily find people that fit all of those categories if you look around and talk to a lot of people, which I haven't been doing. But part of the reason I wanted to do the show is to start reaching out to people like that. So if you're a person like that, say, wow, Ben seems to yell into the camera a lot and probably a pretty abrasive person. That's probably true. But if you are a Marxist, I'd still like to try to talk to you about anything along these lines, not necessarily about this one creative project, but I'd certainly appreciate the input if you're inclined. This is an article that describes quite a lot about revising a screenplay, and I'll recommend it again. Premiumbeat.com, revise by Darren, D-I-R-N, Bradley, D-A-R-I-N, Bradley. If you want to have a look at that, you can. But as it's not related to advanced technology or directly related to this subject, which Falcon X, which relates to advanced technology, and from a few different angles, I'm not going to go any further into that article. I will go back to our ChatGPT article just to wrap it up. Review and edit. ChatGPT will generate a screenplay for you. Read through it and make any necessary changes and edits to refine the story and dialogue. And you're probably maybe starting to get into using this as a pay service. Some of these other related services have a premium version that will write the screenplay for you if you're getting the whole screenplay, but there's no reason that you can't get a whole screenplay from free services. And I'm a little bit guessing here because I haven't actually tried to do all of this, but you will be able to get a full-length screenplay from the free services. You'll just have to have a little more patience with the prompts and reposing and rearranging things, which you would have to do in any event, but you'll have to do it a little bit more. Continue to ask ChatGPT for help in writing different scenes or dialogue. I just keep try and find different ways to ask a question. If you're like, man, I can't, ask it to write something. If you don't like what's going on, ask it to write something completely different, in the voice of a child or something, or in verse, as a poem. Just shake it up. It doesn't cost you anything. So keep trying. The point is rewrite your prompts, rewrite your work, revise it, keep working. It takes a lot of work, even with a full-time digital assistant at your service. But it's a lot less work than you should. You could be able to knock something like this out in about a day And a person writing a whole screenplay that is professional quality in a day, that's a person who's been doing this for a long, long time and really knows what they're doing, and also just smoked a bunch of crystal meth or something, because that's a lot of work to do in one day. You can't really write a 190 or 100-page screenplay in one day, but some people have been known to do this over the course of a weekend or something. I'm pretty sure I've written works of this, a first draft at work anyway, in the course of a weekend, things like this. But it was not professional quality in that first draft. You got to keep working at it. Be specific in your prompts. The more details you provide, the better it will be able to understand what you want. Yeah. Don't worry so much always about phrasing the thing, or worry about using the Queen's English or something. Just use metaphor. Get your ideas into the prompt. Get as much detail into the prompt. If it doesn't understand, it'll be pretty clear within a moment or two whether it understood what you were saying. Then you can rework that. Use ChatGPT as a starting point, not a final solution. While its generated text can be helpful, it's important to review and edit the output to ensure it meets your standards. Yeah, but I would consider that you might start to look at this more as a business, because you have this digital assistant. So you say, well, the digital assistant can pretty well write a passably good treatment. It might not actually have every detail that I wanted it to have, but it might be good enough for me to get a meeting or get some people involved and then continue the process. It's not a good idea to try and do something all on your own for many, many years. Bring other people into the project, and you'll have a pretty good idea then if it's something worth doing. And it'll be better for it. More people involved will be better for it. What are the various aspects of a screenplay that ChatGPT can help you generate? Plot outline, character description and motivations, scene descriptions, dialogue, setting descriptions, conflict and tension, character arcs, thematic elements, scene transitions, action descriptions, humor and comedic timing, emotional beats, foreshadowing and symbolism, tone and mood, pacing and structure, visual descriptions, sound and music cues, ending and resolution. Yes, it will help you with every aspect of this, and it's not too hard to even just find prompts online that already exist to do with the subject. All of these things can be described at great length. Every one of these 18 elements of screenwriting and filmmaking are things that you can read 1,000 articles on, and then just copy and paste some element of that, or tailor some element of that into your prompt, and then tailor it further to the project. Some tips to writing a great screenplay. Start with a strong concept. Have a clear and unique idea for your story before you start writing. Your story should be as interesting as the things people see at a zoo. As in, nobody wants to go to the zoo and see a cow. They want to see an elephant, so give them an elephant. And that's part of the reason. I wanted to make a tech accelerationist, transhumanist superhero movie. But part of the reason why I did this action film is because I wouldn't, there's time when I worked on things that would be described more as historical fiction or kitchen sink dramas, and artistically, people will say that those things are just as good as anything else, or better than action movies. But you do want to make something that people will watch if it's likely to get made. It's a good deal more likely to get made if you have something that's quite scintillating, not the cow at the zoo, and something unique and interesting. Don't make a boring kitchen sink drama, in my opinion, just about your mom or something. You might be able to do some pretty good writing in that area of the personal, but try to insinuate something into it that's more unusual. Make it new, as Ezra Pound said, and more importantly, make it revolutionary, as Johan Ben Zion said. Don't make something that's just more capitalist garbage. And I'll give you another secret. If you're really going to get into the production of something, right, and not just write by yourself as a fun exercise for you, which you can do, there's no law against it. But if you really want to get into the production of something, here's another thing that you can also do, and I could give you a whole tutorial on this too. Is make a graphic novel of it. You can use another generative field, AI art generators, to make a whole graphic novel in a couple of days. You don't even have to know how to draw. I've never learned how to draw in longhand. I've always, for as long as I can remember, done drawing on a computer. And so somebody's like, here, draw this fish, I'd be like, "I can't do it." But I can nevertheless make graphic designs that are pretty cool looking. And a lot of the stuff that I make of recent last few months is heavily influenced by the AR generator. But it's also, anybody who looks at these things closely knows it didn't just come out of an avatar app. It's edited quite a lot. But you should make the graphic novel quick and dirty. Maybe you can make a first draft and then clean it up with new iterations of the frames in the AR generator or something. But make something that would be long enough and good enough to sell as an animatic for a screenplay. Because if you have a graphic, this is a lot of movies that aren't existing properties that end up getting made are somebody that went to some conference, Comic-Con, Nerdicon, with a graphic novel and bumped into somebody else who wanted to make a movie, and they said, "Man, this is pretty good." That having that animatic, which a graphic novel is essentially the same thing, is something that would allow you to do that. So I would maybe encourage you, and also the quality of AIR generation is at least as significant as the quality of ChatGPT for creative purposes. Maybe not for civilizational purposes, but so you can really get something that will turn somebody's head, even if it's not. I suggest again that you get the ideas on paper, get the basic package of professional materials, and you don't have to look too hard. It's thousands of articles on this. Get the full length treatment. Just had a full length treatment written by ChatGPT in 10 seconds. Get these other deliverables and materials. Don't focus on the creative fapping of the too much on the actual artistry or the lovely experience for you of writing. Focus on putting together something that's you can sell as a professional, and then if you start to get in a position to sell it, then you can do that. Then you can be doing the actual work. They won't know that you don't have a screenplay yet. Just say, I have a screenplay, but I am still doing a lot of revisions. But here are these other materials. I'm ready to rock and roll with this. And if they then become interested in rocking and rolling with this, then you say, okay, I'm doing some revisions. Then you have to smoke some crystal meth and write a whole screenplay in the course of a week, or you might lose that lead. Don't be too precious about this stuff, and don't be too precious about sharing it with people, even if you're like, oh man, this is garbage, nobody's going to read it. But definitely try to use ChatGPT to make it more legible, and give people a new spin on it, like the graphic novel thing that I said. There's probably 100 tricks that you can think of besides these two. It does, like I said, if you want to work on any kind of creative project, any kind of initiative that's not in a speculative discipline, there's a lot of these things that I talk about. You can find dozens and dozens or hundreds and hundreds of thousands and thousands of articles and videos on how to do this. So use those and incorporate them into your cutting edge technology strategies.